Hi, and welcome to What Did That Really Say? Analyzing a State Land State Deed. My name is Rebecca Whitman Koford, certified genealogist and certified genealogical lecturer. In this discussion, we'll break down how to review a document step by step. First, we'll collect information from the document, and then we'll analyze what we're seeing. We'll try and learn about the context behind the creation of the document, or maybe what may have prompted the creation. And then last, we'll use that information that we find in the document to further our research by formulating new research plans based on the new evidence and based on our understanding. So let's get started. Just a couple ideas to start with about state land, state deed records. It's a great idea to have some reference books available. One that you might consider is Land and Property Research by E. Wade Hone. Another are local guides for your state or the local area. You might consider the NGS series in the States. When you're doing any document, you really should read every word. I am a skimmer and I try very hard not to do that. For deeds, you want to create a transcription and an abstract and note anything that might be of use. I like to convert the meets and bounds descriptions to numerical list for easier use because then I convert it and create it to a plat of the property from that description so that I can make a little neighborhood and compare that with early maps and plats. Our case study today is of James Porter of Anne Arundel County. It's from Deed Book NH, that's the clerk's initials, Book 12, pages 355 to 356. He was born between 1741 and 1750, very likely in Anne Arundel County. He's very possibly the son of Peter Porter IV and possibly the son of Miss Shipley, but I haven't been able to prove that one yet. I found for him an oath of fidelity signed in 1778, and I found his marriage in Baltimore County on the 2nd of May, 1782 to Anne Barnes. He was in the censuses in Anne Arundel County in 1790 and 1800. And this deed was in 1804, and he sold land to John Barnes of John. But it's the last record I can find of him in all of Maryland, so it makes it a very important record. What happened to him? Is he deceased? We're going to collect the information first. For deeds, the single best way to collect information is to create a complete transcription. And there's really a lot of guides on this subject. The one that I really prefer is the chapter on transcripts and abstracts by Mary McCampbell Bell. It's in the 2001 edition. That's the very first edition of the book Professional Genealogy, edited by Elizabeth Shown Mills. Transcriptions really should be faithful to the original in spelling, grammar, line breaks, and punctuation so that no unintended interpretation is introduced. So by the way, for purposes of fitting into these slides, some of my text lines are smaller in font, so I get the line breaks correct, but otherwise I wouldn't do that. And it goes on for a while. Why? Because there are 3 properties, and there are detailed descriptions of all the calls and corners for each line of the property. That's where you see things like directions for 44 perches, north 11 degrees, west 100 perches, and things like that. But also, not every state land state does this, but in Maryland, the people tend to name their property tracts. This deed refers to the land being sold as part of what was originally a larger whole tract called Shipley's Discovery. And on until we get to the end. So these pages are not the originals. These are copies made by the clerk when the owner and the seller brought their copies of the original deeds in to be certified. Note that any important details such as names of witnesses, dates, and in this case, it appears that James Porter has his own special mark that we need to take note of. So we'll take what we've found now and mine it for possibility. For deeds, the next step is to create an abstract. This is an exercise to take the researcher through the document again and piece out what is or is not relevant. I've included the buyer, seller, date, compensation amount, and description of the land parcels. Then the witness, and I noted James' unique mark. Anything I want to keep in situ from the document, I'll keep that in quotes. And I chose to abbreviate down the calls in the corners. So next, what I'm going to do is analyze by asking questions. So the first obvious questions are, James was married to Anne Barnes in 1782, and now he's selling to a man named John Barnes of John. There's got to be a relationship there that I can find. The next obvious question is, there's got to be more men named John Barnes, otherwise he wouldn't say of John. And there's also got to be one of those John Barnes has got to be John Barnes of John's father, John. So we are alerted to the fact of who John Barnes of John's father is, and that there are multiple men named John Barnes. So there's a men of same name problem that we may run into here. Can we find the neighbors? That's a good question. How do I make sense of all of this? And why is he clearing out 3 properties at once? Why? Where's he going to live? Does he have other land? Where's the wife's dower release? Has she died? Because usually she would say something. And why does he have a special mark rather than an X? Does that mean that we have another problem with men of the same name? How many other men are there named James Porter? Let's learn by taking those things and putting them into context. We'll take some of those questions and take the lessons from them by looking at some of the laws or just some of the general information that we can find about what was true for the area at the time. The first one, is there anything special I should know about land in Anne Arundel County? Well, first of all, land records in the county do go back to 1791, and I found that at the FamilySearch wiki, and that there is free access to land records at marylandlandrec.net, so that's really good news. That means I can find a lot of land and keep going back to land records over and over again if I need to. Where could I find how James received these 3 pieces of land? And how can I find his neighbors? Well, actually, same answer. I have that free access to land indexes and books, browse only, at the marylandlandrec.net. Could I find maps for Shipley's discovery? There is a short description of it on a website called Shipley's of Maryland. And Maryland also has a different website called plats.net that has some of the original patents listed on it. So I'll have to see if Shipley's discovery was maybe even a colonial patent. What are the laws surrounding dower and land sales in Maryland? And does it mean that James' wife is deceased if she didn't sign the dower release? So Maryland did require a wife to relinquish her 1/3 share in the property at sale to clear title. But the Maryland State Archives Guide, which is at msamaryland.gov, says that sometimes the dower release came even later or not at all. And it didn't mean the wife was dead. She could still be living. It just depends. I hate that answer. I really do. Next question. How do I create a plat with the meets and bounds description I have for the 3 locations to compare with any maybe plat maps I do find or any old maps I find? Well, platting can be done by hand with a compass, ruler, grid paper, pencil, and protractor. Great. Or there are a few programs designed for genealogy. That might be more my style. All right, let's develop a plan for what we're going to do for James and Anne next. Here's just a sample of some of the research we could pursue. We have 3 columns here, some of the clues, what we're going to search for, where to search, and then a column for the research venue. Here, I'm going to plan what is the most effective way to look at the research. Am I going to do it online? Do I need to do some in-person research? Or is there maybe a large facility with microfilms like the Salt Lake Family History Library or the Allen County Library or the Library of Congress that would be the best place for me to go? So my first clue is that James had 3 pieces of land on Shipley's discovery in 1804. What am I going to search for? Well, I'd like to know when he received them and who from. I'm going to go to the indexes and deeds from mdlandrec.net. Luckily, I can do this online. What about the meets and bounds descriptions and the 3 pieces of land? Well, I can get a computer program for land platting. Of course, I'll have to learn how to use it, but there are 2 that are commonly recommended. One is the deedmapper.org at Direct Line Software, and another is Meets and Bounds Software at taberer.com. Those are online too. James married Anne Barnes and sold land to John Barnes of John. So is there a relationship? Anne's father is unknown. So could this be a relative? I've really got to pursue this. I'm going to search deed, court, church records, and anything I can for men named John Barnes and be very careful that some of them could be not related. I'm going to have to do this carefully and pursue things that are offline and online. Deed records are online, and some court records are online for Anne Arundel County that I can find, and those are on FamilySearch, but they're browse only. Church records may not be all online. I may have to go to the Genealogical Society in Anne Arundel County to ask them about some published indexes and see if they can help me out with other ideas. Next, Shipley and Barnes are very common names in Maryland. Again, here, I should visit the Anne Arundel County Genealogical Society because if anybody's done anything, they are going to know where it is. I'm going to check their published books, and they've got surname files on these families. So that's going to be an in-person visit when I can go. Next, Anne did not release dower in 1804 on the deed record. It's very possible she's deceased. So I need to go and check cemetery indexes and obituaries. Again, the Anne Arundel County has published cemetery indexes, but I'm going to try online newspaper websites for obituaries too, because there are some early ones. And because Anne Arundel isn't really too far from Baltimore, I'm going to check some of the Baltimore papers back in that time too. James next is supposedly not in Maryland after 1804. Maybe he died. Well, I've got to do the same thing for him there too. Check the Anne Arundel County Genealogical Society and do both treatments for him. And then the Maryland State Archives said that some dower releases were given later. Well, let's go back to the indexes and check more records past 1804, because the last thing you should do is stop checking those same deeds. You just never know what you could find afterwards. And I'll check indexes and deeds at mdlandrec.net. I might want to go back and check probate that's even past this time, way past this time, in case somebody just didn't bring the will in until 10 years later or something like that. And I can do that online. So I think we have at least a plan to work with. We can find other things as we're going along to put in our plan. But I give you some good news. Do you know what happened when at least one of these things was pursued? I looked into the indexes and deed records past 1804. And when I did, I found that Ann Porter of Ross County, Ohio, had sent her dower release. They had moved, not died. I'm reading the bolded section. The release had been acknowledged by Ann Porter, wife of James, late of the county of Anne Arundel and state of Maryland, but now of the county of Ross and state of Ohio. So she was in Ross County, Ohio in September of 1804, and signed off her dower at this point, and then it got mailed up to Anne Arundel County and certified in court in March of 1805, because probably they were trying to clear title to sell something again. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see if John Barnes of John was trying to sell it. Well, now my research has changed. So it's going to have to all go to Ross County, Ohio, isn't it? Not all of it, because I've still got all of that research to do for John Barnes of John. So what did it really say? We collected, we analyzed, planned, and learned. And all along the way, what we really did is wrote in a research log. We wrote, and writing is the key to getting the information out of our brain and letting us look at it and really talking to ourselves about what we have. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the conference.